Good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 12th day of the Sheni, the second Adar. And today we begin chapter 37 in the Tanya. The Rebbe continues here with the concept of Dira B'Tachtonim. An ultimate desire of what Hashem wants is a home right here in this world. When will this home will be complete? That will be very, very soon, with the coming of Mashiach. And Alter Rebbe explains that everything what we accomplish, everything that we have, and that we will see in a revealed way in the coming of Mashiach is all a result of our actions. Our deeds and our actions create the reward. What does that mean? It's different than when you go to work, you get rewarded. But the reward that you get, whatever job you do, you're a teacher, you're a businessman, you're a lawyer, you get rewarded, you get paid. But you did not create this reward. You just worked, you spent time. And you get paid, you get a nice check. But when we're talking about the reward of the mitzvah, the mitzvah itself creates the reward. What does that mean? We brought earlier in the chapter 35, the Alter Rebbe mentioned about the need of doing mitzvahs of action. Why? And he said because he brought the example, he brought the metaphor from the Zohar that a person is like the person is like the wick. He says there is a light on the head that needs oil. The person is the wick. The light is the light of the Shekhinah of Hashem, and in order for that light, it needs oil. And we explained what is the oil? The mitzvahs, the actual mitzvahs. So the Alter Rebbe asks there, why do we need the actual mitzvahs? Why is it not enough if we have a neshama? We have a godly soul. The godly soul is itself pure godliness. And he explained that the neshama, no matter how high and how lofty, how spiritual it still has some sense of self. That the neshama wants to have a connection with Hashem. So there is a self, there's a neshama, and the neshama wants to have a connection with Hashem. And no matter how high of a neshama it is, it can never grasp fully the greatness of Hashem. But when we're talking about a mitzvah, what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is a commandment of God. It is an expression of God's will, not your will. Therefore, when you do God's will, what happens then? You become one with Hashem himself. You are expressing God himself. It is God's will that you're doing. You're putting on the tefillin, you're doing God's will. You're putting a penny in tzedakah, you're doing God's will, any mitzvah like this. So therefore, what happens with the mitzvah? What is the reward? The mitzvah itself creates its reward. The reward is being one with Hashem, and that is the mitzvah itself. Except that for now we can see it. And ultimately, what does God want? That this tremendous light, unlimited light, unfiltered light, non-concealed light, should be revealed where? In the lowest of the lowest worlds. In this physical world. And we explained yesterday, how is it possible? And we explained that Hashem gives us the strength through the Torah. The Torah gives the dew of the Torah. For this, you can go back to yesterday's class to understand more. Yesterday and the day before. So now, Alter Rebbe explains, this is all of what we're doing throughout the years, and especially when we're doing it throughout the time of exile, when godliness is not seen, it's concealed. and yet we keep on doing the good things, we keep on doing the mitzvahs. This creates the reward of that we will see ultimately in the coming of Mashiach very soon. So let's look inside. Says the Alter Rebbe v'hinei, Tachlis hashleimus hazeh shel yemois HaMashiach u'schias hamesim shu gilui oir ein soif baruch hu ba'olam hazeh hagashmi. Now this ultimate perfection of the Messianic era and the time of the resurrection of the dead, which is the next stage after the Messianic era, or within the Messianic era. So what is the ultimate perfection? Meaning the revelation of the Ein Sof light in this physical world. So all of this, as the Alter Rebbe, Tolui b'ma'aseinu v'avedeseinu kol zman meshech hagalus. It depends on our action and divine service throughout the period of exile. So, in other words, we learned yesterday about the revelation that happened in Mount Sinai. In the Mount Sinai, the revelation that happened, it was a revelation from above. Every Jew received a very, very high revelation, but it was something that came from above, but it wasn't something that we accomplished with our deeds. But here, our deeds, our actions, and our divine service, which also the Alter Rebbe is very particular in the words that he's using, when he's saying that Ma'aseinu v'avedaseinu, our action and our service. Actions is simple actions. You're doing what you need to do. Avoda, Rebbe's father explains, avoda is work, very hard work. When you're going beyond the extra, when you're doing the extra mile, you're going beyond the requirements. All of this leads to this great reward that will be the days of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead. Because he says, because the mitzvah it is the mitzvah itself that causes and creates its reward. That's what we explained, that the mitzvah, this is here the difference, that here by a mitzvah, the mitzvah itself creates its own reward. This is the cause of the reward. And he explains why, because when you do the mitzvah, by performing the mitzvah, a man draws the revelation of the blessed Ein Sof light from above downward. Where does it bring it down? And it brings down this divine light to be clothed in the physical, in the physicality of this world, meaning in an object which has been before under the dominion of the klipas neiga, and it received its vitality from this klipa. This we explained that everything in this world receives its vitality if it is something which is not impure. It receives its vitality from the thing that's called the klipas neiga, the shell that is potentially can shine, potentially good, something which is totally impure and not kosher. Then they receive its vitality from a lower place, that place that's called the three impure shells, which cannot be elevated. But whatever is from the neutral klipas neiga can be refined and can be elevated and transformed. Continues the Alter Rebbe. Namely, all pure permissible objects with which the act of the mitzvah is performed. So by performing the mitzvah, the man draws the Ein Sof light upon the object within which it is performed. And Alter Rebbe brings examples of the living, the different elements of the creation. You have the the living creatures, an example of the vegetations, an example of the inanimate objects. And it says, "Kegoin klafat tefillin mezuzah v'sefer Torah." For example, the parchment of tefillin, mezuzah, and sefer Torah, which must be made of the skin of permissible kosher animals. K'may Marazal, as our sages of blessed memory said, "Lo yuchsha lemelechas shamayim ela tohirim u'metorim beficha." For the work of heaven, meaning the mitzvah object, is only that which is pure and permissible to eat may be used. So that means, in order to elevate something, it has to have some potential to be elevated. It has to come from noigai. It's not totally impure. And the same thing is also brings an example from the vegetation. Similarly, an esrog which is not arla. Arla means forbidden fruit of a tree the first 3 years. It is considered forbidden, and you cannot use for a mitzvah. So esrog we take in sukkahs with the lulav, the citrus fruit that we take, the esrog has to be from a tree which is not arla, and that then it can be elevated. And similarly also mois atzedakah she'einam gezel kayetzben, money given to charity that has not been acquired through theft and the like. Meaning other physical objects used in performing a mitzvah, all which were previously in the realm of klipas neiga, and as the Alter Rebbe will conclude, are now merged into the divine will by serving the purpose of a mitzvah. And the Alter Rebbe here brings in the footnote, it says, we mentioned that the esrog cannot be from arla, and he explains, arla imisholosh klipis atmeis legamre, she'ein lohem aliyah la'olam k'meshakasu be'etzchaim. Because arla is of the 3 completely unclean klippas that can never ascend into holiness, as it is written in Eitz Chaim. Thus, it says fruit, which is arla, deriving its vitality from these klippas, these shells, cannot be elevated by having a mitzvah performed with it. And similarly, it says the Alter Rebbe, "V'chein kol mitzvah abo ba'aveira chas v'sholem." Similarly, any mitzvah whose performance involve a transgression, God forbid, since the sinful act receives its vitality from the 3 complete unclean klippas, the resulting mitzvah cannot elevate it. So you can't just go and rob a bank and says, "I'm going to go give you money to build a Chabad house." That doesn't work. So, but all other mitzvahs that we do, we should realize the power of the mitzvah, and especially if it's difficult, especially if it's in the time of exile, when we have challenges and it's not easy, because it's one thing when you see the truth, when everything is nice, and you see right away openly that whatever you do automatically connects you with Hashem, then it wouldn't be a problem. The Rebbe says in a Yom Yom that when Mashiach will come, we will miss these days. We'll say, these days, whatever we did, whatever mitzvah we did in these days are so much more valuable, so much more worth, because it doesn't come easy. And we come and we achieve. So therefore, when we break ourselves and we do the right thing, knowing that we create our own reward, our own connection with Hashem, and the tremendous thing that is accomplished, this is very, very much valued. And this will ultimately lead to the very immediate revelation of Hashem with the coming of Mashiach. Thank you so much for joining. Emet Hashem. Continue tomorrow morning, 9:15 a.m. All the best.